The Honorable E. Susan Garsh presiding.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Have any of you seen or heard or read or overheard anything at all about this case from Mr. Hernandez since our last inquiry? There are no firm responses. Have any of you discussed in any way this case or any of the issues in the case or Mr. Hernandez with anyone since our last inquiry? There are no firm responses. And have any of you had any difficulty following any of my instructions not to talk about, look at, do any research about the case or Mr. Hernandez? There are no firm responses. The witness may resume the stand.
Thank you, Your Honor. Attorney Jenkins, please.
Ms. Jenkins, I remind you that you're still under oath. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you.
There you are. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Now, yesterday, when we broke off, or let me just go back to, you indicated that on Saturday, June 15th, that sometime in the morning you had received a phone call from somebody?
Yes.
And who was that?
My sister?
Okay. Did you see your sister in court today?
No. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, and can you just point her out, describe her, if you would?
Right there. I can't really.
Or what row is she sitting in?
First row.
And her location in the row?
To the right.
Okay. And when she called you on that morning, did you have a conversation?
Yes.
As a result of that conversation, did you do something?
Yes.
And what did you do?
Called Odin?
And did you tell him something, just yes or no?
Yes.
What did you tell him?
Sustained.
Your Honor, could we Do you remember how long that conversation was with your sister?
Couple minutes?
Now, without getting into that conversation, as a result of the conversation, did you make a phone call?
Yes.
And who did you call?
To Odin?
And did you give him some instruction?
Yes.
What did you tell him?
To have Aaron call my sister?
Okay. And after that, I think you indicated the next occasion you spoke was on Sunday?
With?
With Odin, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. Do you know if you spoke to him later in the day?
Yes.
Okay. And how frequently were you speaking to Odin back in June of 2013?
Several times a day?
And and were there certain items of property that you would see Odin with at various times?
Yeah.
I'm just going to show you a series of 5 photographs and ask you if you recognize what's depicted in each photograph. Do you recognize what's depicted in this first one?
Yes.
What is that?
His wallet?
How about the second one?
Yes.
What is that?
The inside of his wallet?
This third one?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
His cell phone?
This fourth one?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
The back of his cell phone?
I'm sorry, just if you could keep your voice up just a tad.
The back of his cell phone?
Okay, and then the last one, do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
His keys?
Do these photographs fairly and accurately depict those items as you remember them?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd offer these as the next exhibit. Okay.
They may be marked as the next exhibit. Did you want them all as one exhibit?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You only have a couple sheets at this time. Thank you. And I'm placing now on the overhead what's been marked 24A. You recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
Odin's wallet?
24B is now on the overhead. You recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The inside of his wallet?
When you say the inside of the wallet, does that show certain identifications?
Yes.
Placing 24C on the overhead, you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
Odin's cell phone?
24D, you recognize this?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
The back of the cell phone?
And lastly, 24E, you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
Odin's keys.
Now, the cell phone, Odin's cell phone, do you know when he got that cell phone? Or how long he had it?
It was new, so maybe a month or two at the most.
Now, ma'am, yesterday I asked you some questions about the home and certain surveillance cameras inside the home.
Yes.
And you also described a particular day, the 18th, June 18th, when you had gone to the home and spent a good portion of the home, a good portion of the day at the home.
Yes.
Now, have you had an occasion since that time to view certain video?
Yes.
You may.
And I'm going to show you a series of photographs. 7 in total. Just ask you if you recognize the scene depicted in this first photograph.
Yes.
Okay, and what do you recognize that to be?
The living room?
Okay, and are you in that photograph?
Yes.
Who else is in the photograph?
My uncle and my sister?
Okay. And does this fairly accurately portray you in that photograph
Yes.
and the other persons around you?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you the second photograph. Recognize that?
Yes.
Is that similar to the first photograph?
Yes.
Is it fair to say this is a sequence of photographs?
That's what it looks like, yes.
Okay. Anything different about this photograph than the one I just showed you?
Not from what I can see.
Okay, what about the positioning of any person?
It looks like...
You're going to just ask you to keep your voice up, please.
It looks like my sister is walking.
Show you the third photograph. Recognize that?
Yes.
What, if anything, is different about this third photograph?
My sister's further into the great room.
The fourth one?
Same.
Okay. Fifth one?
Again, the same.
Sixth?
The same.
And the seventh?
Same, again.
So all these, let me ask you this. Was your sister, did she have anything with her at the time she was walking into the room?
Can I see the pictures
Yes.
again? I can't tell from the pictures.
Do you recall, Your Honor, I'd offer these this time.
Could you show the photos?
I did see them, Your Honor. I object to them being admitted as exhibits. I don't have an objection to them being marked for identification. You can explain your objection if you want, so I
Yes. They may be marked as the next exhibit. Do you want it as one group?
Is it serious, Your Honor?
May.
Thank you. Push these subject to, thank you. Now, ma'am, yesterday you indicated that you had observed your sister at some point going to the basement with an item.
Yes.
What was that item?
A black trash bag?
And since that time, have you had an occasion to view a video
Yes.
And were you able to observe that on the video?
Yes.
The items that I just showed you, do you recognize them to be still photographs of that video?
Yes.
I'm going to show you now a series of what's now been marked 25A. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
The living room?
Okay. And you indicated that you recognize certain people in the still photograph.
Yes.
What do you recognize?
Myself, my sister, and my uncle.
Okay, and if you just point out for us, where are you? You're indicating right here.
Yes.
And what color is your shirt?
White.
Okay. And your uncle, where is he? You're pointing down here.
Yes.
And what is he doing down there?
Looks like laying on the couch.
Okay. And your sister, where is she? Over here.
Yes.
And what color is her shirt?
Looks like pink.
Okay. Now, do you, what was your sister doing at this time?
Looks like walking out of the kitchen.
And do you recall where she was going?
The basement.
And I'm going to put now 25B. And the overhead. You recognize that?
Yes.
Okay. What does that show?
The same picture. She's just farther into the living room.
Okay. Should this next clip recognize that?
Yes.
That's 25C. Is that right?
Yes.
And just what difference do you note in this photograph?
She's farther into the living room.
Did they, was there a dog in the picture?
Yes.
And where can you see the dog? Over here.
Yes.
And what was the dog's name?
Milano.
And what kind of dog was it?
I think it's a teacup Yorkie.
Now showing you 25D. What, if anything, is different of this photograph?
She's farther into the living room.
Okay. And does it show what she's holding?
You can't tell from the picture.
Okay. 25E. Recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And how is that different?
It looks like I've moved a little bit and she's farther into the living room.
Yeah, in what direction are you facing?
Looks like I'm facing her.
And I'm pointing to something in front of her, appears to be in her hand. Do you know what that is?
From the photo, or?
Just from your own memory.
Yes.
What was that?
Black plastic bag.
F. Now on the screen, see what direction she's moving from the kitchen in this photograph?
Yes.
And what direction is that?
Towards the basement door.
And again, in this photograph, this item that she is holding, do you know what that is?
The black trash bag.
25G. Is that the last of the series of photographs?
Yes.
And how is this different from the last one I showed you?
Farther into the living room.
In that wallet, you indicated the inside of the wallet, which was 24B. You could there was some identification. Just going to, if I could approach on it, show you what's been marked A for identification. Ask you if you recognize that.
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Odin's license?
And does that appear, some portion of that appear in Exhibit 24B? Can you see it closer?
Yes.
Okay. What portion?
Looks like the far right side of the license.
I would offer the license as the next exhibit.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Now, ma'am, you indicated there was occasion that when you had picked up Odin, he had stopped somewhere to pick something up. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point in time, were you called to appear to testify at a prior hearing?
Yes.
And prior to that, was there any agreement that you had with the Commonwealth?
Yes.
And what was the agreement essentially regarding not essentially that you would not be prosecuted for anything regarding your involvement in driving him or taking him from any location after he had purchased marijuana?
Correct.
If I could have one moment. No, that's all I have at this time, subject to our sidebar conference. Thank you.
Morning, Ms. Jenkins.
Good morning.
The first time that you met Mr. Lloyd was in early 2012,
Yes.
and you were working at a hotel, and Mr. Lloyd was staying there
Correct.
from time to time.
Yes.
And over the next 2 or 3 months, you and Mr. Lloyd became friendly
Yes.
based on seeing him at the hotel.
Yes.
And I think, is it fair to say that in maybe March of 2012, you and Mr. Lloyd started dating?
Yes.
And that developed over the course of the spring and summer of 2012, is that right?
Correct.
Now, I think you have said that the first time that Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Lloyd met was at a football game in August of 2012.
Correct.
And tell us what the circumstances of that were.
We went to a football game for my birthday. After the game, we all met up after, and that's when they met each other.
Okay. So this was a Patriots game,
Correct.
and who was it? You and Mr. Lloyd?
Yeah, me, him, and both of my sisters.
And that would be Cheyenne
Correct.
and Ontavia.
Correct.
Ontavia is your younger sister?
Yes.
How old is she now?
16.
So back then she would have been about 14?
Yes.
Okay. And was Cheyenne and Aaron did not have the baby at that point?
Correct.
This is in August of 2012.
Yes.
And Abiel was born in November,
Yes.
about 3 months later.
Yes.
And so this was for your birthday,
Correct.
and Aaron had arranged for tickets to be made available for the group of you to attend the game.
Yes.
And did you see Aaron before the game?
I don't believe so.
Do you remember going down into the tunnel where the players are before they go into the field?
After the game.
Okay. So you just went to your seats before the game, is that fair?
Yes.
And did the group of you go together, or did you go in separate cars?
Went together.
And I take it Mr. Hernandez had been gone to the stadium separately.
Correct.
And where were your seats?
I don't remember.
Were they box seats of some sort
I think they were in the skybox.
in the skybox?
Yes.
And in some respects, this was a present for your birthday.
Yeah.
Now, after the game was over, I think you said you went down into the tunnel,
Yes.
and that's the first occasion that Aaron and Odin met.
Yes.
And what was happening in the tunnel?
All the families were meeting and eating and talking.
So this was after a football game, a Patriots game.
Correct.
And so it's you, Cheyenne, Montavia, and Aaron is there.
Yes.
And is there, and other families of other players are there as well?
Yes.
Now, was Odin excited about this event?
I guess so. I don't
I mean,
remember.
he played football,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And did he express his pleasure in being able to go to a Patriots football game like this?
Yeah.
And it was a pleasant evening.
Yes.
So did you eat at the stadium?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. So how long were you at the stadium in all?
The entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Couple hours, I guess.
A couple of hours after the game?
Well, no, not after the game. Maybe an hour at the most.
An hour after the game.
I believe so.
And what happened after you left the stadium?
We went back to Aaron and my sister's house.
And at that time, they were living in a condominium in Plainville, Massachusetts?
Correct.
And did Aaron go back with you, or did he go separately?
He went in a different vehicle.
Okay. But all of you wound back at their condominium.
Correct.
And what happened at the condominium?
Sat down, talked. I believe Aaron and Odin smoked, and that was about it.
Okay. And did you and Odin stay over that evening?
No.
Okay. Where did you go from there?
Back to Connecticut.
You went back to Connecticut?
Both me and Odin went back to Connecticut.
You and Odin drove back,
Correct.
and you were driving.
Yes.
And seemed to be a pleasant time that evening,
Yes.
back at the house.
Yes.
And when you say Odin and Aaron smoked, you're talking about marijuana.
Correct.
And do you know whose marijuana it was?
I don't know.
You indicated a moment ago that when the police and the district attorney's office were preparing you to go into the grand jury, you reached an agreement with them, correct?
Correct.
That you wouldn't be prosecuted for any knowledge or anything to do with marijuana.
Correct.
And at that point, in August of 2012, you knew that Odin was a user of marijuana,
Correct.
and you had described him as having a bag of some sort.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
It was like, it looked like a shaving kit bag,
Uh-huh.
and he had just all of his stuff to roll the marijuana, and if he had any, he had it in there as well.
And so it was a shaving kit, something like a shaving kit. And what color was it?
I believe gray and black.
And could you just estimate the size for the jury, please?
Maybe about that big.
About, say, 8 inches, 8 inches long,
Yes.
rectangular,
Yes.
zippered.
Yes.
And when you say he kept his material, or whatever, I forget what word you used, marijuana-associated stuff in there, what did you mean?
Rolling papers, scissors,
Rolling papers and what? I didn't hear.
scissors.
Scissors.
I'm not sure what else, maybe a lighter.
Okay. And what did he use the scissors for?
I think to cut the end of the thing when he was finished rolling it.
Okay. So in other words, if he rolled a joint, he would use the scissors to cut the end off.
Correct.
Had you seen him actually doing that
Yes.
on more than one occasion?
Yes.
So this is in August, and Aaron and Cheyenne lived at that condo until they moved into their house in North Attleboro until November. Is that correct?
Sounds about right, yes.
And am I correct in understanding that you and Odin would see Aaron and Cheyenne basically twice a month from that during that time period?
It varied, but yeah.
And were there times, and basically during those visits, a typical pattern would be that Aaron and Odin would hang out, and you would hang out with your sister or other family members.
Yes.
And some of the activities that Aaron and Odin would do would be to smoke marijuana
Correct.
and hang out,
Correct.
talking,
I guess so.
listening to music,
Yeah.
okay, enjoying each other's company.
Objection. Machine.
Did it appear to you that they were enjoying each other's company?
Yes.
And this condo in Plainville, did you have occasion to stay overnight there?
Yes.
How frequently did you do that?
It was sporadic. Not sure.
Sometimes on your visits to Massachusetts, you would stay over there?
Yes.
And did Mr. Lloyd stay over there from time to time?
Maybe once or twice.
Okay. Do you remember what occasions they were that Mr. Lloyd stayed over in Plainville?
Yes. The one time that I can remember was after my mother's birthday party in October.
Okay. And tell us about your mother's birthday party. When
Yeah.
was that?
What was that?
When was that?
October.
Okay. So this is a couple of months after Odin and Aaron had first met.
Correct.
And your mother's name is Jody.
Yes.
So there was a birthday party at Aaron and Cheyenne's condominium.
Yes.
Okay. Who was there?
Some of our family members, I believe some of my sister's friends.
Do you recall who was there? I mean, names of people?
Some, not all.
Okay. Who do you recall?
Myself, Odin, my grandmother, my aunt Donata, her husband, my cousin Curtis and his wife Debbie, their daughters. Aaron was there, my sister. I believe Leela was there. Aaron's mom, Terry. That's all I can remember.
And describe what the activities were at the birthday party.
Everybody was just hanging out, talking, drinking, eating.
And did you see Aaron and Odin socializing on that occasion?
Yes.
Okay. Describe what you saw.
So talking, I believe they were downstairs most of the time together.
Smoking
Probably, yes.
and hanging out together.
Yes.
Okay. And you and Odin spent the night there.
Yes.
Do you recall that it was probably 6 a.m. before Odin came to bed?
I was sleeping, so yes.
And he and Aaron had been hanging out from whenever until about 6 a.m.?
Correct.
And did Odin appear to enjoy himself on that occasion?
Objection.
Yes.
Now, were there times when Aaron and Cheyenne would visit you or other family members in Connecticut during this time period.
Yes,
So in addition to coming up to Massachusetts, there were several times that Aaron and Cheyenne came down to Connecticut, correct?
yes.
And where, do you remember where these would be family gatherings?
I don't remember.
Okay. Remember where you saw Aaron and Cheyenne in Connecticut?
The one time that I can remember is when we all went out to dinner.
Okay. And where was that?
Some restaurant in the mall plaza.
Okay. You remember the name of the restaurant?
I think it's P.F. Chang's.
And who went on that dinner?
Me, Odin, Aaron, my sister, my niece, Aaron's mom, Terry, my little sister, and my mother.
And when you say your niece, are you referring to Abiel?
Avia?
Yes.
Yes,
So this would have been in after November when she was born.
correct.
Okay. And do you recall Odin and Aaron hanging out on that occasion?
I don't remember anything outside of the group.
Okay. Do you remember that Aaron and Cheyenne stayed over?
Yes,
And do you remember that Aaron and Odin hung out together the night that Aaron and Cheyenne stayed over?
we were all together, yes.
Okay. Now, do you recall that there was a cookout on one occasion in Connecticut that Aaron and Cheyenne attended?
Yes,
And you and Odin attended that?
correct.
And Aaron and Odin were hanging out together on that occasion, on the cookout?
Yes,
And in fact, they were hanging out so much that you and your sister went looking for them?
probably, I don't remember.
I mean, they were kind of off by themselves and you had to chase them down and say, come join the rest of the family?
I don't remember.
Okay. But it's fair to say that during these family gatherings, a lot of times Aaron and Odin would be hanging out together.
Correct.
And do you remember that Aaron and Cheyenne and you and Odin went out to the movies?
Yes,
Where was that?
in Connecticut.
Okay. And when was that?
The same night that we went out to P.F. Chang's.
Okay. And do you remember seeing a house in the movie that Cheyenne talked about you renting for their wedding?
I don't remember. I think I slept through the movie.
Okay. Do you remember a conversation about that topic after the movie?
I don't remember.
Okay. Now, were there times, how did Odin go back and forth to Connecticut for these social events?
Either on the bus or me.
Okay. And were there times when Aaron and Cheyenne would drive Odin back to Massachusetts?
One occasion that I can remember.
Okay. And what was that occasion?
After the cookout.
Okay. And rather than take the bus back, Aaron offered to drive Odin back to Boston,
Correct.
and your understanding is that that in fact occurred,
Yes.
that Aaron and Cheyenne drove back to Massachusetts, correct?
Yes.
Aaron dropped off Cheyenne in North Attleboro
I don't know.
and then drove Odin to Facein Street?
Yes.
I'm going to check. Let me just write down she has personal knowledge of that.
Objection sustained. So what happened after you were no longer present?
Now, I think you agree with me that they moved into their house in North Attleboro in sometime in November of 2012.
I believe so.
And after they moved in, you visited up there quite a bit. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
And you stayed at that house a number of times?
Yes.
And Odin stayed at that house a number of times?
Yes.
And I think you said at one point that it's more than you can remember, more times than you can remember.
Yes.
And the visits with Odin and you at the North Attleboro house, a lot of time Odin and Aaron would go down into the basement,
Yes.
correct? And you identified some pictures in your direct examination
Yes.
showing the basement.
Yes.
And was that basement called the man cave?
Yes.
And you've been down there, I take it.
Yes.
You've seen it.
Yep.
And you identified some drawings of it on direct examination.
Yes.
So there was a pool table, correct?
Correct.
A bar,
Yes.
and I don't know if where things wound up, but you were shown a photograph of a stack of marijuana,
Yes.
and they were arranged in a square pattern,
Yes.
a Jenga pattern, and Mr. McCauley showed you some pictures of the bar, correct?
Correct.
And is it your belief that that photograph of the joints that Mr. Lloyd had rolled were taken on the bar?
Yes.
Take a look at that and tell me if you recognize it.
Yes.
And I'd offer this, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
You must next exhibit.
What is shown in Exhibit 26, Ms. Jenkins?
Odin's bag.
That's the shaving kit that you testified to about earlier
Yes.
with his marijuana-related material in it.
Correct.
And there's a yellow item inside the bag that you can see. Can you see that?
Yes.
What is that?
I don't know.
Did you ever see him with rolling papers of some sort?
Yes.
Did you ever see him with the rolling papers in a yellow and red-like package?
I don't remember what the package looked like.
Okay. But this is the bag that Mr. Lloyd used for his marijuana-related activities.
Yes.
And I think you said that there were times when you would pick him up on Facein Street,
Yes.
and he would, or you would drive around the corner.
Most likely he would.
He would drive around the corner.
Yes.
A short distance from the house on Facein Street.
Correct.
And then he would park the car and go inside,
Yes.
and it was a store or an apartment,
I believe it was a barber shop.
and he would come back after a few minutes,
Yes.
and your understanding was that he was picking up marijuana,
Yes.
and you didn't go in with him,
No.
but you saw him do that on a number of occasions.
On a few occasions.
Now, on some of the occasions when you visited the home with Odin in North Attleboro, did you and your sister go out shopping on occasion?
Yes.
And were there times when Odin was left in the home when you and your sister went out shopping?
Yes.
And there were times when he was left there alone, correct?
I don't remember.
Remember that there were times when Mr. Hernandez was at training camp.
I don't remember.
Okay. But there were times when you and Cheyenne went out shopping and Odin remained in the house.
Correct.
And you're not sure if he was there by himself or if he was there with Mr. Hernandez.
Correct.
But in any event, the two of them were, if Mr. Hernandez was there, the two of them were there together,
Yes,
hanging out.
I suppose.
They were doing chicken, steak.
Now, were there other activities that you and Odin and Aaron and Cheyenne engaged in?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
We went bowling. We went out to a club, I think, twice. Normal activities.
So, tell me about the time that you went bowling.
I don't remember when it was, but there was a large group of us that all went bowling together.
You know where?
I don't remember.
And included in the group were Odin and Aaron?
Correct.
And were there other activities with the group that day of the bowling outing?
I don't remember.
Remember eating before or after the bowling?
We ate at the bowling alley.
Okay. And do you remember if you stayed over on that occasion?
I did not.
Okay. And you said that there were a couple of occasions when you went to a club.
Yes.
What club was that?
Believe there were two different clubs. One was Rumor, I believe, and then one in Rhode Island. I'm not sure what it's called.
Okay. Do you remember when the one in Rhode Island was?
The second weekend in June.
Okay. So I think you earlier testified that the trip to Rumor was the first weekend in June.
Correct.
And that Saturday would have been June 1st?
I don't know.
Take my word for it?
Okay, yes.
All right. And then the following Saturday would have been June 8th.
Okay, yes.
And that would have been, it was on a Saturday that the group of you went out to a club in Providence?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And on those two occasions, did you and Odin stay over in North Attleboro?
Yes.
And the same kind of scenario as we described before, where back at the house, the boys would go down in the basement and you and your sister would be upstairs socializing?
Most likely, yes.
Do you remember the name of the club in Providence?
No.
And was it just going out from the house in North Attleboro to Providence and then coming back?
I believe we went to a different place before Rhode Island and left there and then went to Rhode Island.
A different club or
Club,
restaurant?
yes, club.
Okay. Was it also in Rhode Island?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay. You know where it was?
I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. Were there occasions when you also went out to eat? Aside
Yes.
from clubbing?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I mean, it was a normal activity. I don't know anything in particular.
Okay. Do you remember going out to, well, before we go to that, do you remember at the club in Providence that you and Cheyenne were waiting for Aaron and Odin, and it took them a while to get there, to get to the car,
Yes.
and you kind of went to find them,
Yes.
and they had been hanging out?
In the club, yes.
And do you remember eating at a place called Shogun in North Attleboro? Japanese place?
Yes.
When was that?
I don't remember.
Okay. And in your direct exam, you said there was a period of time when Cheyenne and Aaron were in California. Remember that?
Yes.
And so the football season ended sometime in January that year. And Aaron and Cheyenne rented an apartment or a house in California for 2 or 3 months.
Yes.
And so that would have been, say, February to May. Does that seem accurate?
Yes.
And I think you said that sometime in March you went out with another couple, correct?
Correct.
And I think you said Odin didn't go out.
Correct.
And was this the time when Odin had just gotten his new job with the landscaping company?
I don't remember.
Do you remember that Odin got a job with the landscaping company in March?
I don't remember when.
Okay. Now, I think you testified on direct that Cheyenne came back first, sometime in April. Came back from California sometime in April.
I believe so, yes.
And your visit had been in March for a couple of days.
Correct.
And then Aaron came back, I think you said sometime in May or late May.
I believe so.
Would it refresh your memory if I suggested to you that he came back on April 30th?
I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
exactly when he came back.
Do you recall testifying in the grand jury that you remember seeing Aaron a couple of times in May?
It's possible.
Okay. (16 through 20). Let me show you this and ask you to take a look at a part of it. So see that, and then referring you to page 20, lines 16 through 21. Would you just read that to yourself? So would you agree with me that you saw Aaron a couple times in May?
From that testimony, yes, but I don't remember specific occasions.
Well, do you remember Mother's Day?
Vaguely, yes.
Mother's Day of 2013?
Okay.
Do you remember that there was a brunch for Mother's Day?
Yes.
And that Aaron and Cheyenne and Aviel and your mom Jody and Ontavia and Odin and Terry were there?
Yes.
Do you remember that at first Odin wasn't there and then you left and went and got him?
I don't remember.
But your recollection is that Odin, in fact, wound up there.
I believe so, yes.
And did the activities center around the house in North Attleboro?
From what I can remember, yes.
Okay. And you mentioned Rumor nightclub and that first weekend in June. Remember that?
Yes.
So how did that come about?
We went after my sister's birthday party at their house.
So there was a birthday party for Cheyenne at the house in North Attleboro.
Correct.
And who was there?
Family, friends.
Excuse me a minute. This is let me back up for a second about Mother's Day. Do you remember that Aaron and Odin babysat while you and your sisters went out to get your nails done on Mother's Day?
Yes.
That happened?
Yes.
So Odin and Aaron were there with the baby, and the girls went out to have their nails done?
Yes.
All right. Now, if we could turn our attention to rumor. I think you said that this was your sister's had a birthday party,
Correct.
and there were friends and family there,
Correct.
a number of people.
Yes.
Got an idea about how many?
Maybe 25 or 30.
Okay. And what time did you come up the night before?
Yes.
And so your pattern would have been you would have driven up to Boston and picked Odin up and then gone to North Attleboro?
Not on that occasion, no.
Okay. Was Odin with you?
Later on that day.
Okay. So did you go pick up Odin in Boston?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went down for the birthday party?
Yes.
And during the birthday party, Odin and Aaron were there
Yes.
hanging out?
Yes.
All right. And at some point was a decision made to go out to a club?
Yes.
And how did that decision come about?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Did people have to change clothes to go out to the club?
Yes.
And so the women kind of found things in Cheyenne's closet to put on,
Correct.
and the men found things in Aaron's closet to put on.
I'm not sure.
Who all went to Rumor?
Me, my sister, one of our cousins, a few of her friends, Aaron, some of his friends, Odin. I'm not sure specifics.
Okay. And how did the group of you get to Rumor?
It was like a party bus kind of vehicle.
Okay. And would you take a look at these pictures and tell me if you recognize them?
Yes.
Are those photographs of some of the activities on the day that you went to Rumor?
Yes.
June 1st?
Yes.
I'd offer these, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
Very much. Next exhibit. Did you want them as a series?
Whatever's easier is fine. Sorry, there's no good place to stand with my back. So, showing you Exhibit 27, can you tell us who the men are in the photograph?
Yeah.
Go from left to right, if you would.
One of my sister's friend's boyfriends. I'm not sure his name. Then there's John, my uncle,
Which
and
uncle?
little man.
Okay, and he's which person? The one next to Aaron?
Correct.
So third from the left,
Yes.
and then next is Aaron,
Yes.
and then who's next to him?
His brother.
His brother DJ,
Yes.
and then who's next to him?
Bo.
And then who's next to him?
Odin.
And then showing you Exhibit 29. What is that a photograph of?
All of the girls trying to find something to wear.
And where is that photograph taken?
The outside of the downstairs closet.
And can you identify the people in the photograph?
Myself.
You're on the right side of the photograph? Okay.
One of my sister's friends, and I can't tell who the rest of the people are by the picture.
Okay. Do you see your sister's head in the photograph?
Yeah.
So she's furthest in the closet?
Correct.
And this was after people had gotten dressed?
Yes.
And can you identify who those people are?
Yes. One of my sister's friends, myself, our cousin Lauren, my sister, and two of my sister's friends on the end.
So you're the second one from the left here,
Correct.
and this is your cousin Lauren,
Correct.
and this is your sister Cheyenne.
Yes.
And then I think you said that to go to the dance club you took a party bus of some sort,
Yes.
and is this a photograph taken in the party bus?
Yes.
And who do you see in that photograph?
Odin, my sister, my cousin, my sister's friends, and one of the friends' boyfriends.
So this is Odin,
Correct.
and this is your sister,
Yes.
and this is your cousin Lauren.
Yes.
And again, this is another photograph from the party bus,
Yes.
and this shows Mr. Hernandez on the right
Correct.
and Odin on the left.
Correct.
In that photograph, Exhibit 27 of the guys lined up, that was taken that night
Yes.
before getting on the party bus to go to the club.
Correct.
Now, I think you said that on June 8th, or that second weekend in June, the group of you went out again to a club, and that was in Providence or somewhere in Rhode Island?
Yes.
And how did that come about?
I don't recall.
Okay. Going back to the first weekend in June, after going to Rumor, did the group of you go back to the house in
Yes.
North Attleboro
Yes.
and stay over?
Yes.
And you and Odin stayed over?
Yes.
And Aaron was there?
Yes.
And do you remember going back to the house on June 8th after the club in Rhode Island
Yes.
and staying over
Yes.
with Odin?
Yes.
Now, you've testified some about getting a telephone call from your sister on Saturday, June 15th. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
Did you know beforehand that Odin was going out with Aaron to Rumor that night?
No.
And you only learned about it later as a result of conversation with people.
Correct.
Now, you knew that Aaron had an apartment somewhere nearby?
Yes.
And did you know that Aaron and Odin were going to stay at the apartment that evening?
No.
And I think you testified that you spoke to Odin on Sunday evening. That's Father's Day, correct?
Correct.
About 9:30?
That was the last time, yes.
And I think you testified that his intention was to go to bed shortly thereafter and get up in the morning and go to work.
Correct.
And you knew that he had a rental car that Mr. Hernandez had loaned him, correct?
Correct.
And did you know that Mr. Hernandez and Odin were going to go out that night?
No.
Did you know that Odin was looking for a party or an after party that night?
Objection, Your Honor.
Stay in the phone with question.
Now, turning to your arrival at the house after you were informed that Odin had died. I think you testified that you first went to Fayston Street,
Correct.
and after a period of time you drove to the house in North Attleboro.
Yes.
And you got there shortly before 6 a.m.?
Yes.
And you saw your sister when you arrived?
Yes.
And you were with your cousin, Donnie Smith?
My uncle.
I apologize. Your uncle, Donnie Smith?
Yes.
And an hour or two later, you understood Mr. Hernandez was sleeping upstairs with the baby?
Yes.
And an hour or two later, he came down?
Yes.
And you were in the dining room looking out the window at the time?
Correct.
And Mr. Hernandez came up behind you
Correct.
and rubbed your arm?
Yes.
And he asked if you were okay?
Yes.
And he said that he had been through this before and it'll get better with time?
In so many words, yes.
Did he say he's been through this and that it will get better with time?
I believe he said, I've been through this death thing before. It will get better with time.
You testified in the grand jury, correct?
Correct.
And you recall that Mr. McCauley was asking you about your encounter with Mr. Hernandez in the house.
Yes.
And Mr. McCauley said, and just tell us what happens at that time. Remember that question?
Yes.
And you recall saying, I was in the dining room looking out the window, crying, and he just came up behind me and was rubbing my arm and just asking me if I was okay.
Yes.
Your testimony then?
Yes.
And then Mr. McCauley said, and did he say anything else to you? Remember that?
Yes.
And you said, I believe he said that he's been through this and that it will get better with time.
Yes.
That was your testimony in the grand jury.
Yes.
And is that still your testimony?
I believe there may have been a couple words, but that's the gist of it, yes.
And when you said something about death thing,
Yes.
or when you testified in the grand jury that Mr. Hernandez said, I've been through this before, did you understand what he was referring to?
I'm going to object.
It's the same.
You've known Mr. Hernandez for how long?
A while.
you, I think, testified that your sister Cheyenne had known Mr. Hernandez in high school,
Correct.
and Aaron was in high school at the same time.
Yes.
And do you recall from that time that Mr. Hernandez's father had died when he was in high school?
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes.
And as you were standing in the dining room in North Attleboro, did you understand that's what Mr. Hernandez was referring to?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Was it your perception that that's what he
Objection,
was?
Your Honor.
Sustained.
Now, is it also the case that at other times, you were in North Attleboro a couple of days after Odin died, is that right?
Correct.
And at one point during the day, you left the house and went to see Odin's family again.
Yes.
And then when you came back, the police were there searching the house.
Yes.
And they seized the video system?
I don't know.
Okay. But Emma, is it fair to say that periodically during the time that you were there, and Mr. Hernandez was there, that he would periodically ask you if you're doing okay?
Not that I can remember.
So you were in the grand jury, correct?
Correct?
And Mr. McCauley was asking you questions?
Yes.
And shortly after questioning you about what was said in the dining room, what happened in the dining room, you said that the conversation lasted for 2 or 3 minutes in the dining room?
I guess. Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
And then Mr. McCauley asked you, after that, when is the next time that you speak to him? And do you remember your answer?
No.
Periodically, he would ask me if I was okay. That was about it.
That's fine. I don't remember at this point, but I guess if I said it, then that's correct.
Take a look, if you would, at lines 15 through 18.
Okay.
Did I read your earlier testimony accurately?
You did?
Now, is it fair to say that during these 2 days that you were in North Attleboro, at least when Aaron was there, that he seemed very shaken up?
He seemed stressed.
Did he seem shaken up?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Do you remember Mr. McCauley asking you, and how was Aaron acting during this time?
Yes.
And your answer was, he seemed shaken up.
Okay.
Remember testifying to that effect?
I don't remember, but if it's there, then yes.
You did testify. And that's an accurate characterization of how he seemed to you?
I don't remember.
You don't remember how he was acting then?
I don't recall.
Do you recall telling the grand jury that he seemed shaken up?
If it's in the record, then yes.
And do you recall telling the grand jury that he couldn't eat very much?
Yes.
And that he seemed a little secluded?
Yes.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. Reading from that whole answer. Complete answer she's reading from.
You may read the complete answer.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you could.
And how was Aaron acting during this time? Question, he seemed shaken up, you know. He couldn't eat too much, but for the most part, kind of normal, a little secluded. Question, secluded meaning keeping by himself away from others in the home? Answer, a little bit. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ma'am, the football game that you had referred to, was that a preseason game?
I don't know.
Okay, when is your date of birth?
August 9th.
And it was, you went to the game on what date?
August 9th.
Okay, and do you know when the regular football season begins?
I don't.
Okay. Now, you were asked a number of questions about occasions that you attended either, or you went to the home, or you went to events, and Odin was present as well as the defendant. Is that right?
Yes.
On many of those occasions, were other people there?
Yes.
Did you observe the defendant socializing with those other people?
Yes.
Okay. And when Mr. Rankin asked you about, well, he would hang out with, was Odin hanging out with him? Were a lot of people hanging out with the defendant on those occasions?
Yes.
Okay. Is that an expression of just being there and socializing?
Yes.
And with regard to, you were asked about this, the night of the birthday party where they were celebrating your sister's birthday?
Yes.
And how many people were there?
Maybe 25 or 30.
Okay. And you indicated at some point there was the celebration began at the home,
Correct.
and then later went to a club?
Yes.
And what club was that?
Rumor.
How many people went to Rumor?
Maybe 10 or 12.
And how many people were hanging out with the defendant?
Everybody.
And when you were asked, that picture that was shown of all the men lined up,
Yes.
you recognize that was taken from that night?
Yes.
And that was taken in the front foyer area?
Correct.
Okay. And when asked who is in that photo, you described those individuals, is that right?
Correct.
And were those people friends of the defendant? In terms of, you indicated there were some people, let me ask it this way, were there some people who were friends of the defendant?
Friendly. I don't know if they were friends.
I'm sorry?
I don't know if they were friends or not.
Okay. So there were individuals that attended this event who may or may not have been what you would consider friends of the defendant?
Correct.
Okay. And who would that be in this photograph? If I might approach, Your Honor.
You're asking who was his friend?
Who would be what you would consider a friend of the defendant? And who are you pointing to?
Bo.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's it. And obviously his brother would have
A different relationship, yes.
And so this party, obviously friends and family members were invited.
Correct.
And you were also asked about another occasion where you indicated that on the night of the rumor, asked about who was there, and you said, me, Shay, the cousin, a friend, Aaron, some of Aaron's friends, and Odin. Is that right?
Correct.
So you didn't characterize as Odin as one of the friends. You said Aaron, some of his friends.
Objection sustained.
Okay. You testified yesterday about you described the relationship as you knew it between Odin and the defendant. Is that right?
Correct.
And how would you describe that?
the beginning stages of a friendship.
Okay. Meaning, and on certain occasions, they would be together.
Correct.
Objection sustained.
Okay. Your purpose, or just describe your purpose when you and Odin would get together, or when you made plans to get together.
What do you mean?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, if I could ask it a different way. Would you, when you would either come up to Massachusetts or he would go to Connecticut, the two of you want to spend some time together?
Yes.
Okay. And when you came to Massachusetts, when you would go to North Attleboro, would you and Odin spend time together?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay. So on these occasions that Mr. Rankin asked you about, well, he'd be over the house and he'd be hanging out with Odin, were you spending time with Odin?
Yes.
Who was spending the most time with Odin during those times?
It varied.
And with regard to one of the photographs that you were shown on the night of the party, that being number 29, is that right? If I could use the overhead now. Indicate that this photograph represented a number of you before you went out were getting some clothing to go out and change into.
Correct.
Okay. And where were you getting the clothing from?
My sister's closet.
Okay. When you say your sister's closet, where is that located?
Between her room and then that closet in the downstairs hallway.
And so what floor would that be on?
This one?
Yes,
The main level, first floor?
first floor. And in that closet, were there other items that weren't your sister's?
Yes.
And what were those items?
Some of Aaron's clothing or shoes.
Okay. And are any of those items shown in this photograph?
Yes.
And where are they? You're pointing to the back here.
Yes.
And what are those items?
Sneakers?
And approximately how many sneakers did he have in that closet?
Shown?
No, that you observed that evening or on other occasions.
I'm not sure. Several pairs.
I have a moment, Your Honor.
Do you want to recess at this time?
If we could, Your Honor.
We're going to take an early morning recess. Please keep your mind suspended. Don't discuss the case with yourselves.
All right, so very good.
Do you wish to inquire of the witness at this time? Do you have the films been cropped? You may.
Your Honor, if I could, if the court would permit Mr. Griffin, he's dealt
Yeah,
with.
Judge, I just went downstairs, and I have our video guy pulling out anything that looks like she was in the bathroom or parts where she's...
Okay, so you don't yet have the video.
He has to render them, and
Sure.
it's a slow process. I think he'll be up in about 15 minutes from the last one where we pulled out the part where she goes to the
Okay,
bathroom.
why don't we take a 15-minute recess at this time, then, and then how long is the entirety? I mean, do you really?
Your Honor, I think I was told roughly 45 minutes, but with the clipping, I think it'll be something potentially less than that now.
I'd really hate to have the jury have to take a 45-minute recess, so.
In terms of the playing, this wouldn't be a recess, Your Honor. I'm considering in terms of the time it would take to play.
Right, but she needs to, you can't play something in front of the jury asking her to identify it as fair and accurate. The jury sees it, she then does not identify it as fair and accurate, it then doesn't come into evidence. So the process with still photos is someone shows it, the still photo is shown to her, to the witness, in a manner that the jury can't see, and it only gets displayed to the jury once the witness has found it to be fair and accurate. With video, it would seem to me that that preliminary process has to be done outside the jury, and therefore would require a however long this is. But let's see how long it is after these.
Your Honor, she's seen the video, so it's not like she has to go back and watch the whole thing. It just will be now the shortened version. Her attention will be directed to those things, and then. But there's nothing new that's been added. If anything, there's been things that are subtracted. So in terms of the authentication, whether she's had an opportunity to see it and determine it's fair and accurate, she's already done that. So I think it can be...
I guess unless the defendant is willing to accept your representation, and I'm not by any means suggesting that this, what you say is not accurate, but unless the defendant is willing to accept the representation that she, on some earlier occasion today or some other time, actually saw this particular video, then I think it has to be played before her.
I think that's right, Your Honor. I mean, there were a lot of the clips as I watched them.
Defense counsel to see the editing, that is, so
If I might, Judge, the video player is capable of speeding it up a little bit. She can still observe all that's in the contents of the video. And then, because it did take some things out,
sure.
Maybe if defense counsel could even kind of watch it, we'll hand them one as she finishes with one, and so on and so forth.
So once you have it ready, let the clerk know. We'll come back, play those videos for her outside the presence of the jury, and see whether she authenticates her own images.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.